Hello. Hello. Welcome to Object Worship.
I'm a million.
The podcast where we talk about how the tangible
I'm $1 million.
helps us create the intangible.
I'm $1 million. $1 million.
It asks the question,
I'm $1
what
million
is art?
$1 million.
And how is it made? How it's made for art.
I'm $1 million.
I'm your host, Dan Pichacek. I do pedal stuff. I don't know. I make pedals. I write the code that makes them go bleep blorp, etc., etc. I'm joined by your other host, Andy Othling.
And I'm $1 million here.
He's $1 million there, $1 million everywhere.
He's got zero readers.
We are joined by another Andy.
I joined.
Andy 3 by his own ranking system, where Andy Martin lands first. But I'd like to say it's just three. It's just three equal Andys.
It's a round table of Andys.
The Othling, the Pitcher, the Martin. They're all number ones in my book.
OPM. That's interesting.
But it is his third episode of Object Worship. You've probably heard the first one, and you couldn't have heard the second one because we
If you did, you need to tell me how.
Please do let us know if you were there while we
and
recorded it, and if you hit record for Andy Pitcher's audio, because
then we do have another episode.
then we do have another episode for you.
Yeah, no, I would like to officially apologize to you, Andy Pitcher, on the air and say I messed up. Your audio was not recorded last time, and I went to edit it, and I haven't had that feeling of your pit of your stomach falling out. Like, I haven't had that in a while, so it was kind of like invigorating.
I'm sorry. Yeah,
it woke me up. Where I was like, all right, let me get this edited, and then just going, oh, no, it's not. Like hearing Dan and I go, ha, 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 and then just seeing your mouth moving and nothing happening. I'm like, God damn it. And then I immediately found the problem. I was like, shoot. All right.
You were like talking about, the YouTube premiere and stuff in Slack. Like you were getting prepped for the edit and everything. And then you texted us to say that something went wrong and you feel horrible. And I was like, it must be that there's something wrong with the podcast, but like he was already talking about how we're going to publish it, so like couldn't be that.
Yeah. It's not like I waited until the last minute to check the file or anything.
I forgive you, and
thank you.
It was fun to hang out, and it'll be fun to hang out again.
I'm having fun already.
Yeah, we basically had just an incredible 2-hour conversation. It was genuinely one where, and this is not me trying to rub it in the listener's face, but it was genuinely one where you sort of forget you're recording a podcast, and sometimes it got very personal in some very deep and interesting ways, but also
I gave my social security number.
We gave thoughts on heaven and hell at the end. Like what? How did we get there? Remember
that? I didn't think I had a story, but when you talked about that feeling in your gut, it's been a while. It made me realize that I had a recent experience where it was enough of a gut feeling that I was actually asking whether it was a dream or not, because it's the type of thing that happens in a dream. So we were, my wife Haley and I were heading to Chicago over the weekend for one of her cousins was getting married. Nice little family event, and we arrive at the Airbnb, and I drop our 2 suitcases down, and then I look around, and then I realize that there's something. There should be something else in the car, and the garment bag with all of our dress clothes for the welcome drinks and the wedding itself, and and we consolidated into one garment bag, because great, that makes it really easy. All you have to do is remember to grab it out of the closet, and you just hang it up, and then
grab
you got
bag.
A couple dresses, you got a suit for a 6'4" skinny boy, and yeah, it was you just stand there and you're like, okay, my immediate thought is that the most reasonable thing to do is to drive the 4 hours back home and then the 4 hours back here.
Yeah. So
and then when you feel yourself having
what
that
time
thought,
is it going to be?
Yeah, you're like, well, okay, so something must not be real because that can't be a real thought. And then your wife goes, "It's okay, we'll figure it out. We both forgot. There are stores in Chicago."
So is that what you did? You just got
Well, so it was. I was realizing it was a black tie optional wedding, and I was like, I will take the option for sure. But it made me realize that I don't have like a black or charcoal or just like basic dark suit. It's like I have like green and brown.
Oh, I see where you're going.
It's like I have some nice colors. And I realized like, oh yeah, I guess I don't actually have anything that like even like within black tie optional, I think technically you're supposed to wear like more, even if it's just a suit, it's supposed to be like black or charcoal or something like that. And I was like, but I'm not going to get a suit for this wedding. And so then I thought, well, maybe I will just get a black or charcoal suit, and that way I will just have it. That way it's like, yes, I'm panic buying a suit, but it's one that I will get other wear out of, and I'm not just like in full panic. And so it worked out. Macy's was running a sale. It was all good.
But you get to use your Macy's bucks.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah. So cool.
Free socks. That's pretty fun.
So that's my exciting story from the weekend.
Do you have
I just want you to feel like we all make mistakes. Sometimes we have to re-record a podcast. Sometimes we're debating whether we drive back home after just driving 4 hours away from home.
Sometimes you got to redo a podcast. Sometimes you got to buy a suit. That's just the difference between me and Dan. Andy, Pitcher, when was your last pit stomach dropping moment?
Every day.
No, don't say that.
Every day I wake up and I go,
no, come on.
Another.
Well, other than that one.
Other than that one, I think I blocked it out. It's really often. It's quite often and completely unlogical how often it occurs.
It's probably a New York thing. That's probably happening to everyone there multiple times a day.
Yeah, I like it. Oh, you know what? I got on like I had a hard, like, I'm going to be here at 7:30. And I got on the train going the wrong way for the first time in years. And
see, that's like a bad dream kind of thing.
Yeah, because I see all of a sudden, normally the subway's underground, but there's a couple lines that go over the bridges. And all of a sudden I see Manhattan skyline open up as I am traveling. I am hurling myself towards Brooklyn. And I'm like, that's the wrong fucking island. I'm not supposed to be over there. So then I have to actually leave that station and pay again to swipe in the other side to go back the other way and be half an hour late. I was so embarrassed. I was very, and I literally was like sitting on the train going like,
yeah, those scenarios where
doing breathing exercise. And I'm like, I'm cool. I'm cooling. It's all good.
Like, I fucked up, but I can literally do nothing about it at this exact moment.
Like, dumbass has got to sit here a while. Like, that. And then I drove and I played at Relic this weekend. Mm-hmm. And I got to my turn and there was construction. They waved me on. And then my phone.
Their thing got ripped up right in front, right? Of their place? Or is that different? Also
different. No, this is, I mean, like in New York. Like, I'm leaving my neighborhood. And my GPS goes from an hour 40 to 2 hours and 30 because I couldn't turn on one street. It's like if I go one block more, somehow it adds. And that was another time that I was like, what the fuck is happening? And then I pulled over and I go on my phone. I'm like, I bet you're doing a trick. And I had tolls shut off. And it was only an hour.
Doing a trick.
Yeah, it was great. So I got there an hour early. I was so happy. It was nice. Good time. But yeah, so that stomach pit, there's always a silver lining, be it like a shorter route there. Because my dumbass would have drove the hour 40 way and paid like $2 less in tolls. And, Dan would have had the wrong color suit and we would have had an episode that maybe I was too...
we would all be doing something else right now.
I was a little loquacious. Yeah.
But the one benefit of doing the episode now is that, well, we are always asking for voicemails, but the last time we recorded, your album wasn't out yet. So no one really had a chance to listen to it before. Yeah. So that's another silver lining here is once we get to the voicemails, people will be able to refer to actual things that they've heard.
Yeah, that's true.
And we can talk about it.
Yeah, not conjecture.
Yeah, I was I initially suggested we record like soon after the album comes out, and then you sent us an early link to it, and I was like, well, this is awesome. Crazy. I've already listened a few times. Let's just record now. And then as we recorded, I was like, oh right, but listeners, okay.
Well, thinking back now, it is really funny how Andy was like, well, let's do it early, so in case we lose this episode, the second one will be after the album comes out. Like, that's crazy that you said that when I think back on it.
It's like amazing how much prophecy was held within that episode when you think back, you know?
Yeah.
I predicted that Andy would get a new keyboard. I remember.
Dude. Yeah, you did.
I predicted
and it's
that
probably going to be delivered during this podcast, which is so crazy.
We'll get to hear your bell.
Yeah.
Last night on Reverb, there it is. Yep. I had a miracle appear in front of me. For $27, it was a lot of, I think, like 14 vintage Fender celluloid picks and a set of the nylon Duratone underwrap Fender strings from the 60s, of which I've only ever seen one other set, but they have a layer of like nylon under the flat wound. They sound like you're palm muting. I think it was like the string version of a Fender mute. I made a video on YouTube of me playing the last set I had access to. It's it's just like a fun little thing, but like really strange strings, and I was thrilled to randomly just have a set pop up because I guess I'd years ago set a Reverb reminder like, hey, if this very strange set of vintage strings happens to pop up, send me an email. So another prophecy as foretold in the book of Pitcher.
And I'm sure we'll get into a lot more string talk in terms of
Notebook,
your album, and
the book of Pitcher,
and your day job too. You know,
my gig.
Yeah,
gig.
I love bills.
Dan, what should we do now? Do you want to go to voicemails, and then
I would say let's get into voicemails and see where that takes us. I don't know how many we're sitting on or what.
We've got a good amount.
Content of them is, but we can use that as a jumping off point, and then we'll get into the object, and then I don't know, guys. We just goof around from there, man.
I almost had someone call in and leave me hate mail because I was curious if you all would tell me if that happened. And so I was going to plant one. But then I decided that's not healthy thinking, and I didn't act upon it.
What's funny is, like, I didn't screen any of these that we're about to hear, so, like, I wouldn't have even known ahead of time.
Truth be told, it would just come straight through. And
and then I would, the worst case, I'd be like, I'll edit that out, I guess.
So I sit here crying, but bad crying.
Yeah.
In the first episode.
We got you crying the first episode because of a good thing.
Yeah.
And now we're going to just tear you down.
Thank goodness.
On the line, on, that's the line for you to call.
Is that the same one as last time?
Yeah.
Just hits fucking smash.
It just hits so hard.
I was hearing, I think because I've only heard it in stereo like once or twice, but there was some extra clarity. Something was happening there.
Yeah. I should have mixed it in mono to get it really good mixed, but
like Sophie.
Yeah. All right, let's see what we got now for Andy here. I tried to read this voicemail, but like none of the words really make sense, so this is a little bit of a gamble. We'll see.
Okay.
Well, hey there, partners.
Oh.
Old Ike here coming to you
it's
from the
Old Ike.
Desert Waste. I don't get so good a reception out here, but I caught a little gobbled snippet of your next podcast, and boy, am I psyched. I didn't know you boys covered sports, too. I loved baseball as a boy, and my favorite player was Andy the pitcher. Surprised he's still around. He had to be darn near 200 years old by now. He could throw heaters and change-ups and hang-downs and flippers and knucklers and bucklers and his famous pig whistler. I bet his favorite object is, it's probably a beer. He had a real problem.
It's probably a beer?
Anyways, can't wait to listen to you. My childhood hero and partners, I bet I love what he's going to be saying.
Holy shit. Ike, once again, you have nailed it.
The listener most on top of it. Old Ike.
I didn't know from you. I didn't know you were 200 years old.
It's true, yeah. That was the big thing for me, this record. I wanted to make sure I can get in under the 200th birthday. So for the last episode, I was 199.
I want to release an album before I turn 200 years old.
Yeah. It's like I somehow, like my illiterate bullies when I was a child always went to like camera puns, and it's like,
and this is like the 1800s.
Yeah, this is the 1800s. Yeah, so they were like, like flashbulb. They called me that, and I was like, hey, come on, it's not spelled that way. It's like, but whatever.
But whatever. Okay, it looks like I'm seeing now that I think the bit with Old Ike is he does tend to have a follow-up. So I think that's this here.
I guess you're saying bit, but I'm confused about, it's like, seems like just a very genuine experience of a listener.
The bit of audio that we receive from him is,
right, there tends to be a second bit.
Is this through
everyone's giving us a little bit, of themselves. Let's see what his follow-up is here.
Hey there, partners. It's all I can get. Well, once again, boys, that's dirt in my eye. I gotta get better reception out here. This reception is it's making me look like a fool. And
we need to get better reception.
It's actually Andy Pitcher, the guitar virtuoso, and not Andy the Pitcher. Which, honestly checks out. Andy the Pitcher would be a terrible guest. As I said, he's the drunkest man I've ever seen on a ball field. Truly a terrible person. But, boy, could he throw it. Well, boys, stay on your tiptoes out there. And, partners, I bet our loved one, Andy, is going to be playing.
Yes. Oh, my God. This is so good.
I do live a life of deceit. I am not a pitcher, but as a boy, I did fantasize about having a redundant baseball card. I thought that'd be charming.
Redundant base, like Andy Pitcher.
Andy Pitcher.
Yep. Yeah,
that's so good.
But I never had the skills.
That's kind of like, how many bands do you know where they have an album and a song title that's also their band name?
Oh, my favorite is Bad Company by Bad Company off the album Bad Company.
Yeah, that one's good.
You get the
there's
triple.
Also there's so many like crazy hardcore bands like that.
I'm a big fan of In a Big Country by Big Country, probably off the album Big Country, but I'm not sure on that.
That's pretty good.
Devo has some close stuff. They have like national anthems.
I think the funniest one to me is Bury Your Dead. Bury Your Dead by Bury Your Dead from Bury Your Dead.
Might as well just been a single.
Yeah. Okay.
Speaking of burying the dead.
What?
What else we got?
Okay. Yeah, the next one here.
Hi, Object Worship. It's your pal, Cleo. My question is Legend. For all three of you, and that is, what's the worst thing you've ever done? Funny answers only. Okay, bye.
What? Oh my God. Oh man. Are you ready to go, Andy?
Well, I had an immediate answer.
Which interesting.
Made me feel like it should be that one because I don't feel good about it, but maybe I can dig and find something I feel worse about, but I feel bad about a lot. So
and it's fun. Reminder, funny answers only.
Oh, everything's funny to me. In ninth grade, a dear friend of mine, our lockers were next to each other. We spent a lot of time together in groups, and I just thought it'd be funny to like pretend to not see him one day. And then his reaction was enough for me, and trying to keep a straight face was fun enough for me that it went on for probably months. Where we'd be like hanging out in a group, and he would like say something to me, and I just would.
Like a Black Mirror episode where you'd blocked him.
Yeah. And then like he'd push me, and I'd be like, "Oh, it's windy," like what are stupid jokes you make as a child. And then on the last day of school, we're cleaning out lockers, and I turned, and I was like, "Rob, where have you been?"
That's so good.
Which was a great payoff, and we're still friends. He texted me happy birthday there, but for some reason, just like nixed him for a couple months.
I didn't have anything, but then that reminded me of this was a much shorter one, but it was in high school, like in high school acting. A handful of us thought it would be funny to like pretend that someone else was in a Truman Show experience. So like, you know, you're just like talking as if you're like you keep accidentally giving away that like this is all controlled. And then the trouble is like the bit didn't go on for too long. Like it was like within a class period, and the whole thing had to have been like conceived, executed, and like revealed within, you know, 45 minutes or whatever, plus actually doing whatever we were doing in class theoretically. But the trouble is when you try to then pull back and be like, we're just messing with you. If someone is at all convinced that they are in a Truman Show experience, you can't come back from it. They have to spend a long time coming back around to the idea that like this wasn't just a momentary blip, and then all of your friends pulled it back together and are never going to reveal again that. So I thought I didn't have anything, but that reminded me exactly of some of the terrible bits that kids do to each other that can really mess with their perception of the world.
Oh yeah, it's like Winston from New Girl. Anyone the show New
Girl? Someone at home
watched it in a while.
So. Hands over their head.
Just his pranks they're either nothing or they're way too far.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah.
Like you can't do the right prank.
Yeah.
I was trying to think. I was actually just trying to pull up the gear page. Because that's I tend to lurk the gear page, and like once a year I will get so something will happen and be like, I just gotta say something. I have to say something. And I'm reminded of it recently because just the other day I had all these notifications on the gear page. I was like, what is happening? And then I saw that Blair from Eastside had gone through and like liked a bunch of my comments that I'd made on this one thread. And it was about Full Tone. So it's a little spicy. And that's why I'm trying to go to my post. Bring me to my post.
That's probably one of the better things you've ever done amongst the list of very great things.
Well, Blair, yeah. But so the thing about it was, they're like, someone was like, well, Mike's posted all his bad stuff on the internet. He's been a mean person. And someone was like, someone in there was like, well, I Googled, quote, Mike Fuller racism, and like this long thing that was in a quote. He's like, I Googled this and I got 0 results. And I was like, all I did was respond. I was like, this is the funniest post I've ever seen. Someone loudly proclaiming, I don't know how to use Google. Because it's all in quotes, and that means it's going to be taken literally as a string. And then the response was like, oh yeah, is it because I'm a boomer Google or something? And I was like, I never fully admitted why I was laughing, because they never figured it out. And then later on I was like, oh, even funnier, now there is one result for your Google search and it's this thread. And so I was like, and I screenshot it. I was like, oh, there actually is a result now. Check it out. And he was like, I'm pretty sure that's this thread. I was like, I know. But then I didn't say anything because I was like, if I keep poking this bear, but they kept being like, yeah, so what? I was like, I've made my point enough, I think. So
it's always a hard one when you've like really made your point, but the recipient can't understand that the process is done, and you're like, well, that's that, I guess.
Yeah, see you later.
You haven't grown, I haven't grown. You know, like
we'll just go back to our corners.
Yeah.
Just another day in the churn, and
yeah. I just get sucked in sometimes, you know. My other answer to the question was going to be, I did use papyrus font on my first album that I released.
That's awesome.
So,
that's good.
Yeah. So that's that question. Here's the next question.
Thank you, Cleo.
Yeah.
Hey, it sucks that the last episode got messed up.
Yeah, I know.
I just want to say that, like, I love Andy, and his record's really great. And I was wondering if it had occurred to you guys that when Andy is on the show, you guys have the smallest number of unique letters in your first name than any other guest. That's it. Okay, bye.
Yeah. Oh, I see what he's saying. And he is right.
Wow. Big zero. Was that Dave?
Yeah, that was Dave Jordan. Yeah, because Dave in here is very close as well, but Dan undercuts him.
Yeah.
Dandy.
But now, hold on, because I'm really an Andrew.
So am I.
And are you a Daniel?
So am I.
I'm also an Andrew.
No, I am a Daniel, though.
That got me. That's good.
I never go by Andrew, but I do have a doodle here from Skull Servant Dirge Evan Craig, who doodled me when I had a beard, and he labeled it as the Andrew Pitcher.
The Andrew Pitcher. Maybe that's what Ike saw, and he just mixed up the words. He saw Andrew the Pitcher. That's what old Ike saw.
Dave had a good question last time, and I brought props for it, and I'm going to answer it. He had asked, because I was prepared this time. He had asked. You
want me to play his last one?
Sure. He sounded so sad in this one. I felt kind of bad.
Yeah. No. Here, let's listen.
Hey guys. I
so much
just want to say that something that inspires me is Andy Pitcher.
Aww.
He is wonderful and an amazing musician. So, thanks for existing, Andy.
Oh,
also,
God, wait.
I am curious if he watched the movies.
Wait, no, go back on this one. I didn't watch the movie. I feel bad.
Okay,
I didn't feel bad.
Okay, I guess we shouldn't have played that.
I fully forgot.
Sorry, I meant. Oh man, I'm all mixed up. Sorry, Dave. I gotta watch it.
Put it on the list.
Last time I was like, I think so, and then I went and looked and was like, oh no, I didn't watch that yet.
Okay, so well now we got a definitive answer.
Yeah, I could be honest and let him down.
Yeah.
Congrats on Robbins.
Oh, it's so good.
I had a years long search for a hum song because every time I typed into Google 90s haircut song, it would give me that fucking Pavement song. And
90s haircut song. Why were you Googling that?
Because I heard this hum song and it was stuck in my head. And I didn't know what it was, but it was I'd like your hair long and I'm like, oh, it's the not haircut song.
Oh, it's the anti-haircut song.
Rather be in that.
Yeah, Pavement, cut your hair.
Yes,
I just did the same Google you did.
Fucking goddamn song. Yeah, all that comes up is like Gear Page.
Beck,
hey,
Devil's
what's that
haircut?
90s haircut song? Yeah, that one too.
That song is cool.
It's a good song, but it's not the one I wanted. I was like, where's that riff? But now I know the riff, and there's a pedal for it. Anyway, thanks, Dave.
There's a pedal for it, yeah.
Thank you. Dave is one of the sweetest people in my life because he sends me candy, which is sweet.
Yeah. Yeah.
To him,
it's good. There's a special bond of people who don't partake in other substances.
Yeah, it's sugar. The bond is sugar.
The bond is sugar, which is fun.
That's the ultimate straight edge revenge.
Yeah. All right. This next voicemail is from Coffee Spoons, who again I feel like potentially could be deserving of a theme song at some point. I don't know. I'm just saying we get Ike's on the list. I don't know. Could be cool.
We'll see. We'll see if Coffee Spoons also sounds sadder in their second.
We'll see.
Hello, fellow hogs. Hello, Object Worship, and hello, Andy.
Hello.
This is Coffee Spoons calling.
Hello.
I phoned in also for the lost episode.
Yes, you did. I'm sorry.
I just wanted to say that I really enjoyed the idea of like the creative process of skateboarding. Even though I'm not a skateboarder myself, I relate to it a lot as a classical musician, where we do these things that are called excerpts, where it's like they scan through an orchestral part and they like find the hard part. They're like, okay, play that hard part.
Oh.
And that's like part of the audition process for us. And so I can relate to that process of like grinding again to something until you until you finally achieve a trick, or in my case, you finally achieve like playing the excerpt the way you want to. Anyway,
you can shred
a wicked lick.
I would love to hear more about that, and I'm really excited to hear the podcast today. Okay, have a great one. Bye.
Oh yeah,
excited to actually hear this one.
Yeah.
Thank you again, Coffee Spoons.
Yeah, thank you, Coffee Spoons.
That is an interesting parallel for sure.
Have we mentioned the book on this episode yet?
It
hasn't come up on this episode yet. It'll be in the title and description and whatnot. So it'll be a bit
let's
of a
introduce
reveal
the
there,
guest. Yeah, and you're like, I fucking hate that on podcasts. And finally, let's introduce our guest for today. I'm like, dog, I clicked on it because it said Paul Rudd.
Yeah. Like being flabbergasted. Whoa.
Paul's here. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Come on, man.
Paul F. Tompkins is on this? Oh my God.
I feel like there's a chance we talked about this on the last one too, where Eric Neifler told us, he was like, you gotta just introduce the guest. Like, why are you holding off on it? And it was like, I think in my head it was funny because I was thinking of like, Comedy Bang Bang, like, and we'll introduce you in a second. Like the idea that you're fully talking with the guest for a long time before actually just like saying what their name is. But it's pretty silly. You just got to say we're here with Andy Pitcher.
And talking about a book about skateboarding. And we'll introduce them later, the book.
Yeah, now we're not talking about that right now.
Yeah, the book can't speak yet. Yeah.
It's not object time. All right, here's another one here.
Hey guys, calling in again. So sorry to hear that.
All right, this guy sounds pissed. He's like, calling it again.
Calling it again.
Let me do this again.
Taking time out of my day like I got any to spare.
Last time I was just saying how influential Andy's guitar playing has been on my guitar playing, and super informative, and how I do all of my improv playing and everything like that. So first off, thanks, Andy. And then my question from last time was about what do you dislike about the instrument, and how does it inform your creative process? And if you have time, would love to hear about the whole miking the rib technique that you did on the new album, Andy. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Yeah, because you posted a picture of the rib thing.
Yeah, I posted nipple, hoping the thirst trap would help.
Yeah, which I assume it did.
We'll see. I didn't quite get the headlines I was hoping for.
Oh, really?
So it goes.
Experimental guitarist bears it all.
That's Dylan. Dylan Finch. Dylan made me cry last time. If you want to add footage of me sobbing, but
not this time though.
Not this time. I was ready. I was brave. Yeah. It was really overwhelming, but and also I know I have a better answer about what I dislike about the instrument, because last time I was kind of like searching for it in real time, but I don't know. I feel so funny. Like, I don't want to wax poetic on the same thing, but it's
no, I like what you said last time.
Yeah.
But it is true. So one of the things I've always really loved about the guitar is its accessibility, because it feels like an instrument that is like not classist like a lot of instruments can be. A lot of classical instruments, a lot of really beautiful history that's hard to engage with for people who are interested. It can only be engaged with people who are interested and have the means, which sucks. And guitar is so beautiful because it's like ubiquitous, but that ubiquity still comes with the imagination, or like the cultural imagination of what it means to do that thing. So like saxophone, people are like, oh yeah, like jazz, and they don't really think about like, I don't know, like any of the big, concerto pieces written for saxophone or something. Guitar is like this kind of dumb rock instrument, and it's like all like wow, a rock your freaking body, it's like this, or it's like like
it's the Eruption
song. Yeah, it's Eruption. It's Carl from Aqua Teen Hunger Force, or it's like strum along while you sing a thing. And it just sucks. It just kind of sucks that it's like so stereotyped to be these things. Because all of a sudden, when you are trying to do something on the instrument that isn't one of those things, it's like, it doesn't give you a chance to like introduce yourself, you know? Like I often don't talk about the fact that I play guitar to people I meet in the world, despite it being the only thing I like, which just makes me a terrible conversationalist because I have nothing else to talk about. But it's just, you know, I don't want to have to do the like as much as I fucking love AC/DC. It's like, it's a lot to explain that you're not AC/DC and instead you're this other thing. It's easier just to kind of hide behind it, you know? Yeah. I don't know.
And I think last time I somehow shoehorned talking about my YouTube guys is here because like
they're the perfect example.
Well, I know, and that's what I mean, because
they're as much guitar as any of us.
I know, yeah, but it's the full spectrum too, where it is certain people not, I guess, kind of taking the guitar for granted or just using it as like hate to say it this way, but like just like an extension of their penis, basically. Like it's just like, hey, here's how cool and big my dick is. That's even though watching that when not in that person's head is horrifying and sometimes hilarious. So that's why
there's this thing that I see a lot in men, and like, you know, there aren't a lot of opportunities for men to be emotionally affirmed or like told that they're good or at something. And so what I find happens, especially in guitar, is we find someone we all agree is good at that thing. Eddie Van Halen, you know, or like you'll see it in trends where like, you know, when I was in high school, like gent was a huge thing. And it's like, I don't think that many people in their heart, their creative output, when they close their eyes and thought was like funny rhythms, but they know, okay, well that person's good. So if I can do what that person can do, then I'm also good and I'm also worthwhile and I'm also interesting and I'm all these things. And then all of a sudden you lose yourself in that trying to be what someone else thinks someone else's version of good is. Whereas if you really think and you really sit with yourself and you really like try to sing as you play and like hear what's happening, like it's probably a different voice and it's probably a more unique voice to you that hopefully you can validate yourself with and not have to be like, well, I'm also Eddie Van Halen actually. You know?
And one thing I've talked about previously, which I think it applies here, is just that like when possible, and even with these crazy guys on YouTube that I find, I try not to judge them in the sense like the analogy I always like to use is like, yeah, we all have utensils. We have spoons for cereal or whatever. But there are people who like collect spoons, and they're not crazy. They don't use those spoons to eat cereal. It's like hanging up somewhere, and it says like Missouri on it. Like I don't understand, but like that's how some people view gear and even music. Like some people are like, I just want to be able to play that AC/DC song. Like they're not doing the masculine thing. They're just like, and from my perspective, it doesn't always look any different. Those both these guys are playing an AC/DC song. One of them is doing it out of like toxic masculinity, and one of them is doing it out of pure enjoyment for this freaking song. And like, I try to give people the benefit of the doubt. A lot of the people on YouTube I find specifically make it clear that they're the toxic masculinity kind, and that is funny. But
there's like
when that's not given, I like to try to think, well, like they're just collecting spoons, and like I don't give a fuck. You know, like who cares? That's fine.
It's the idea that there are so many different expressions of self, and then there's like one end of the spectrum where you're like, I'm going to use my voice and create my own thing, and it will have influences, but it won't be, it will feel original to me. And then there's like, look at this trick I can do. Like I'm playing Wonderwall at the college party so that girls will like me or whatever. You know, there's like it's like the sort of pure function, like show off thing. But then there is that fascinating realm of like, I'm playing Wonderwall because I deeply identify with this song and I'm trying to embody its like sonic and emotional ideals and feel something within that.
That's what I do when I learn these new Slipknot songs and stuff. When I'm saying, fuck it all, fuck this world, fuck everything that you stand for, I'm like, oh, this kind of rings true in 2025.
Yeah, so heard. Well, it does go back to kind of the classical thing. Like there's nothing wrong with like repertoire, you know? it's not like an insignificant amount of my life I've spent like learning Black Sabbath stuff because it feels really good. It's just, where does that drive you at the end of the day? It's like to be mean on the internet to other people having a nice time. That's where you're set to the island.
Yeah. It also create, this is less of a dislike and more just an acknowledgement, but it does create so many conversations where when someone sees you with a guitar, they because they have a concept of it, it's like, what kind of music do you make? And like, if you are just purely in like a classic rock cover band or whatever, easy answer. Mm-hmm. Oh, I play classic rock. But for, the bulk of musicians, it's like, oh, it's like, and you start searching for a mainstream representation of like your voice, and it just never lands. It's like, I don't know, Coldplay, I guess.
It's kind of like Flowbots meets like Kenny Chesney.
Yeah. What would I have heard of you? No.
No.
If you have like a weird instrument, people are just like, what is that instrument? And you say the name of it, and it's not guitar. I say weird instrument. I don't want to place a judgment on it because I'm just like, something not as mainstream. And they go, oh, okay. And then you're covered. You don't have to.
Yeah, you're free. You're
continue.
Free. I play the bassoon. They're like, oh, you play Peter and the Wolf? It's like, or oboe, sorry, whatever.
You provide the soundtrack for people like lurking through woods or something? That's what you do, right?
I long for that freedom. I long for that freedom, but I'm grateful for how accessible the guitar is. That's the answer.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is for me. The instrument is freedom. It's intellectual, freedom. It's artistic freedom. It's emotional freedom. And to have that freedom like subjugated out the gate, that's really the dislike is like, oh yeah, I know what you do. Oh, okay.
No, you don't.
No, you don't. Yeah.
All right. Well, we do have another thing here, and it's Clint.
Clint. All I really want is Clint, and I like the way he calls, and it's chill to hear him talk, and I can always make him smile.
I was thinking, oh, I remember this song. Last time I didn't remember the Hogline song, but I remember this song. And then I went to the halftime. I was like, oh, I didn't remember this song. This is so good. Yeah.
Yes.
Let's hear Clint.
Let's hear it.
Hey guys, it's Clint.
It's Clint.
So I have no idea what I left on the last voicemail since y'all lost the audio. That's fine. So
is it fine?
Fun question.
Is it fine? Okay.
But first off, Andy, your record was great, but
why did he say it like that? Andy, your record was great, but
thank you, Clint. But
I'll just end it there.
Could use some more licks,
Squiddly wham.
I thought there would have been some solos, maybe some whammy. I don't know.
I had the option to write and do a record with someone out there. Who would be your top three?
Top three?
Yeah, that's all I got, guys. If y'all know what I sent last time, or if Andy knew what I sent last time.
There's no way to know.
I mean, it'd probably be more up to date than what y'all were talking about before. But yeah, Andy, I still have not played a DL4. This one. But never really jammed it. Sorry. But yeah, see you guys.
So first of all, Clint, you left 2 voicemails last time, and I completely ignored the second one because you were only bitching about Brady. Just so in case that jogs your memory. And I believe last time you were like, who was your top 1 person to collaborate with?
I don't even think.
And now it's top 3. I'm pretty sure.
I do like the idea now, though, that it sounds like it's almost like, okay, build a project with 3 other people. So now it's like it's like you're,
Oh, a band?
It's like ranked choice voting.
I was thinking, like you're collaborating with 3 other musicians in a.
Oh God, that's so much harder than 3 individual. Relationships.
I mean, we can change it. We can make it 3 individual.
Well, I'll do. if it's three people in a room, we'll say Courtney Swain, Ryan Hackney, and Kurt Ballou. We'll say that.
Ooh.
Right.
Okay.
Let's see what that quartet would do.
Wow.
Keep your ears out in the next.
What would that sound like?
I have the recordings. But if they're,
I was gonna say this one sounds achievable, but it sounds like it's already achieved.
That's a band. No, that was a lie. Or was it? But so yeah, individuals. I thought I really liked that moment during the voicemail where you and Clint through time had a conveation. You said something and he answered yeah. It really fucked with me for a second. But I would say Joanna Newsom. Like, I'd love to, like, honestly, for me, like, all the recording I've been so lucky to do with people, like, I like being kind of the helper and not being like it being my show. That's one of the reasons doing a record was so hard for so long. Because I was like, what do I have to say? I like when someone lets me speak in their language, But Joanna Newsom would be like a great joy. I think someone very interesting that I'd learn a lot from, and it'd be really intimidating. It'd be very difficult for me. I think that could be interesting to do. I'm definitely, like, obviously, if you've heard the record, I really like Aphex Twin, but he hasn't done that many like big collaborative things. I like that with him in music. That one record, Expert Knob Twiddlers, but I think more realistically, being like an instrumentalist, like, it'd be cool to work with Square Pusher. Just because he's like, we could play bass and guitar and electronics, and that's like where my brain lives. That'd be really rewarding. And then last, I don't know, probably like some Freako, New York City, like Mary Halverson, or like Zorn or someone. The kind of improv part of my brain, that'd be a gift I would not take lightly.
Nice, good answer.
Thanks.
All right, final voicemail. It's a short and sweet
and
one.
Also, Clint, play the DL4. Just try the fucking thing.
No, don't tell him. It'd be funnier if
just get
put tension between him and the DL4.
Etch one.
Ooh, yeah.
Instead of getting up at 4 a.m., get up at 3 a.m. and etch your DL4 before you get to work.
This is just a quick side note that may or may not lead anywhere. But the other day, I was recalling a time where, Andy, it was like, I don't know, some old blood trip or other, and you were talking with someone else, and you described yourself using 3 guitar players. You were like, all I am is just a mix of like, and it was like Pat Metheny, and then like, I don't know. I basically, I was trying to remember the 3 guitar players that you named, and I'm throwing it out to you as like, hey, 2 years ago you said a thing. Do you remember what that was? But I'm curious if it is something that holds true, where you're like, I always think of myself in terms of like, you mush these 3 things together and that's me, or if it was just kind of a throwaway in the moment thing that you wouldn't be able to recall.
Definitely throwaway in the moment. If I had to try and think again, I probably would have said Pat Metheny. I mean, I might have said Mary Halverson, because she does a lot of really cool open string stuff, and maybe like Omar Rodriguez Lopez. Oh, I probably said Derek Bailey too. So Omar or Mary, Derek Bailey, and Pat. Realistically, yeah.
Now, if Pat was on the show, his letters in his name are still. I think Dan still has it beat with the number of letters that match everyone else. I'm just thinking. I'm thinking through that.
Dan's whole name is in our name.
That's so crazy. I just keep thinking about that. It's so crazy.
Pit Metheny, just no A.
Oh my God. I found a guy the other day. His name is Pit Driver.
Whoa.
And he does 2 open mics every week. And he goes to them as a solo electric guitarist, just playing the riffs. And there's house drummers that try to follow him. And it is the craziest thing I've ever seen. His name is Pit Driver, and he wears Pit Driver sunglasses. He has a Pit Driver shirt. He's showing off his big, beefy arms. It's amazing. Sorry, you said the word pit.
Probably
that was on my mind. All right, last voicemail, short and sweet.
Hey, buddies. Just want to say, Andy, you ripped. Great job. All right. Have a nice time.
Hell yeah.
Thanks, buddy.
You ripped, dude. You fucking ripped. Anyway, that's the hog line. Hog line over. Thanks, hogs.
Done.
Hog line out.
Now, as always, we classically and cleanly move into the next portion of the show.
Yeah.
Andy, what's your object? What you got with you today?
My object is the 2004 book, The Mutt, How to Skateboard and Not Kill Yourself by Rodney Mullen, co-written with Sean Mortimer.
I'm thinking of a book that came out a year before that would have been called How to Skateboard without the last part. And then him releasing one called How to Skateboard and Not Kill Yourself. I don't know, that's really funny. Like
there was a lawsuit. There was a lawsuit.
All right, I'm making stupid comments. We already talked about this book.
I know.
Oh, yeah.
No, I remember I got erased. You eviscerated my recording. And I sobbed and gave my heart and told you all about my dead parents. So here, it's funny to me. I could say it. Mine is signed by Sean Mortimer. Rodney Mullen was also there, but I was a little too nervous. Do I tell you about the object, or do you ask me about it first?
It's a little yes and yes, but I'll provide a little guidance.
Okay.
I'll mention that part of what I basically, since you first came on, I've been wanting to have you back on so we could talk about this book, purely because you called, like, we were approaching recording of your episode, and I should have looked this up after. We were trying to fact check it of like where you were in the lineup. I feel like you were episode 2, and I want to say we did record with you second, but that we hadn't released any episodes yet. So you were part of an initial 2 or 3 episodes where we were trying to bank them, but we didn't have a good sense of like what exactly this would be yet. And you called me to talk about a few different concepts you had for the object. And the fact that one of them was a book was really interesting to me, but we both agreed that maybe for episode 2, picking a pedal makes more sense.
Yeah.
For this music gear podcast. But I was like, I want a guest to come on and talk about a book as like a twist on the tangible object idea. And so it's nice to have you back here talking about it. And then I do feel like two of my go-to questions are like, with music gear, it would be like, do you remember, kind of the day you bought it and what it felt like to like plug into it for the first time? And then later I'll ask a question that's like, have you had any recent moments of discovery, something new with it? So I would say just give us the start of the arc of like your finding of this book and what your initial experience.
Where did you first learn to read?
Maybe,
yeah. I had this book called Reading for Dummies, and I thought it didn't make any sense, And
then one day it just clicked.
It just clicked. Yeah, it worked. I started eating it like the Latin executioners, the executioners had to learn Latin rather. They'd eat the Bible.
Yeah.
Anyway,
that's
so
the work I found.
You found your way through it. I'm proud of you.
I was trying to read Calvin and Hobbes books that way.
I had the Bearstein Bears, but I got through all of them. And now it's just the Bearstein ones, and everyone's all up in arms about it. Yeah. Cut that.
Nope, I'm gonna leave that. I understand the reference.
I think the Mandela effect is rooted in racism. I was a skateboarding youth, and I was not terribly interested in sticking around long term. I just didn't see what life could hold that would be better than how it was bad. And then I got really interested in skateboarding and guitar around the same time. And I realized that like if I could give something my everything, I'd be interested in seeing it through, and like seeing a little more longevity on my dates on the old rock. And so I started deep diving all these things I was really interested in, and people who are kind of like excellent in what they do, and just like finding those early inspirations. I was I guess I would have been like a latchkey kid from like 10 on. I basically watched I'm the oldest of a few kids, and so I watched my younger siblings because my single mom had to work nights. My dad had passed, and so I was kind of responsible for the house. So I just had unbridled internet access, which can go a lot of ways. And thank fucking goodness it was guitar pedals and skateboarding videos.
Yeah.
You know, and so I would just like kind of dive into forums and on early YouTube and all this stuff. And
what year is this? Is this 2004 or before that?
So 2000, no, this would have been probably 2007. My dad died in 2005 and I was 10. And probably like around 12, I start like 11, I tried to see myself out. And then 12, 13, I like had more interest in sticking around. And so, yeah, probably there up in like 14, that period, I start really getting into like the internet and as much as I could figure it out, you know. And yeah, and so I would just like skateboard poorly and play guitar poorly, but really love it with my whole heart. And that's all I thought about. And then Rodney Mullen was kind of always my favorite because he was such an originator. For folks who don't know, like if you can name any skateboard trick, he probably invented it. Like the ollie, like just jumping, you know, like flat ground at least, or like kick flips or impossibles or heel flips or 360 flips, or tray flips as they're also known. Like he just is that fucking dude. It's amazing. And he wrote this incredible book about kind of his troubled childhood and the way he got out of it through this passion. And I found this book, I would have been in middle school, so that would be like 2007 probably. And when we talked about originally, like, you know, what do I want to do for object worship, that first episode, I thought this book was interesting because this is literally the copy I've had since then. I think by the math, like most of my life now. Versus when we first recorded this, I don't think the scale had tipped, but my birthday has passed in the 2 weeks. So I'm now 30. But yeah, so I mean, it's just an incredible like piece of culture, and it's dated, and it's like from a very intelligent but very, you know, definitely a skateboarder. So there's some like lingo in there that's like, well, we don't throw that word around anymore, but that's okay.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. What are your thoughts, Dan? Because you read it.
I did. Yeah, I read it like maybe last winter or something. Like I read it not long ago, but long enough that most of it has cleared out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny because I remember reading it and being like, "Oh, I'd be interested to talk with Andy about this, or talk with Andy about this," and now I'm like, what he did was he skateboarded.
I mean, I
do remember that I'm trying to think of like pieces of it, but we're talking about him like inventing tricks. I feel like there's anecdotes about like where he would see like a picture of someone doing a trick and be thinking like, what would the motions be like? You know, he's learning and inventing at a time where you don't have much like video evidence of these things.
Yeah.
He would deep dive into just like a picture, you know, mid trick, and try to guess like the physics of it. And the way that it was like he had this very safe approach to it, like covered in pads, and like, because that was part of the deal, is like if he's gonna skateboard, he has to wear like a helmet and pads and be fully
there it is.
Oh yeah, and this came up, because on the last episode I talked about how because of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater I wanted to skateboard, but my parents were like, "You frail child, you have to be in pads." And I bought a Bart Simpson skateboard from Toys R Us, and kind of tried to learn it like just like on our porch, like, you know, the bit of outside cement we had that wasn't sloped because it wasn't, you know, a driveway, and just never figured it out. But yeah, it was interesting that he took a hyper analytical approach to something that is so like physical, and it's like I guess the equivalent would be like when you think about guitar players that are like worried about like twitch muscles or things, where it's like you're looking at the deep fine motor skills of how to create something in order to be an artist about it. And it feels like a lot of his story is similar, where he's like he's deeply into like the physics that make it happen in order to do something that looks totally new and feels original to him, but is like this physical expression of
self.
Yeah, of self.
Yeah, well, it's interesting because like for me, I slowly like realized that guitar would be kind of a better path forward in my life, you know, because I had these period where I'd be like skateboarding for a couple hours a night, as he describes in this book. He describes this really obsessive practice routine, and he kept journals about it, and he would like, he'd see a trick and kind of reverse engineer it on paper before he could do it with his body, you know?
Yeah.
And really at the end of the day, like it's his body moving that is making all these things happen. And I saw that in guitar as well, you know, like playing the string is a physical movement first and foremost. And, you know, no matter how much you spend time with it, your brain still has to make something interact with the object before, you know, your brain can just make the object move on its own. And unfortunately, it'd be a lot more fun if I could just think about it.
You guys can't do telekinesis?
No, I didn't.
I can do that.
Is that a Bluetooth update?
Well, I learned that over COVID. A lot of people were doing other stuff, and I was working on my mind skills.
Like a tone print?
Yeah.
You play through the headphones. Binaural beats.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been working on it, but I'm not there yet. Yeah. It's like lucid living is what I'm working on. So like, yeah.
That is such a good local band name.
Lucid living.
I found a photo.
I love that you've already capped their success.
I mean, let's be real.
There was my phone likes to do that thing where it's like, hey, remember this photo you took 7 years ago? And the one yesterday was a photo of a billboard in Nashville that said Hell Nightmare. And it was a haunted house.
Remember this?
So like Hell Nightmare and Lucid Living would be opening, like great opening acts for each other. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, we're co-headlining, but it's just the two of them. So there's no local.
They both have massive merch tables though. They're ready to sell.
They're like feuding over like, hey, could you guys, you know, isn't 5 shirts enough? We got to put up our 6.
We need the lamp for ours so that people can see.
My room is illuminated with one of those like Home Depot like loose lamps you clip on the stuff against a mirror. It lights up the whole room if you put it against a mirror. It's a good trick.
Those vibes could be kind of crazy. Sometimes.
It's pretty haunted. It's pretty spooky. Yeah. I rent a living room basically from an older couple. These old buildings had a living room and a parlor room. The parlor room was like where you would have a dance, you know, in 1890 when the building was built, and I live in the parlor room, so it's pretty spooky.
That was back. You were like 100 years old then.
Yeah, back when I was just starting. Yeah, with my local baseball club. Back then we called it ball and stick. But post baseball,
people were named after their positions on the team. That's why you're the pitcher.
Yeah. Yeah, my old last name is Smith. Yeah, I was an OG on the Mayflower, but
damn, yeah.
You know, then we did all that horrible shit, but I try to put that behind me.
I'm canceling you for that.
If Cleo asked what's the worst thing you've done, not funny, then I would have said
not funny. Well, it's when I came over on the Mayflower.
Yeah, but worst thing funny is when I cosplayed as a middle schooler.
The worst thing I did was when I told Columbus, "Nah, this will be fine. We can just stay here." That was the worst thing I ever did.
I said, yeah. The last time I felt my pit, the stomach drop into a pit or whatever.
It's when I landed at Plymouth Rock.
This isn't India. I think I'd have some spices here anyway. But
the
yeah,
Plymouth Rock bit from Object Worship, pretty good.
Clip that.
Clip that.
Clip that chat. I guess it's Dan. And so so a lot of the book is him like thinking into text, and I got really into that with skateboarding and guitar, and slowly with time I realized that I was not going to get anywhere with either unless I really dedicated myself, not only because of time, but because of like injury. I was bound to like, you know, break my arm is like kind of a rite of passage, and then I may never be able to do guitar the same way again. And so I got all this great advice from this book about obsessive practice, and the rest I just enjoyed. And then I made a book of my own that I've been keeping for a long time. And when I come upon an idea that feels really different to me, I'll write myself a lesson about it. and then I will slowly read it and take it as if it were a lesson. So like I'm trying to find a really visual one that will communicate for the people not just listening. Like I have one in here I call cognitive dissonance scales, where I noticed that on the guitar, if I can go up a scale, like, and I go up the neck this way, I go across, right? Or I can go up the neck this way. But I was like, what if I want to go like down the neck, but I want to go up a scale?
But still be going up in pitch?
Yeah. Oh, no, I got to practice.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
You know, yeah.
You're purely thinking about the direction of like your fingers.
Yeah. So I'm going up the scale and down the neck, which is the cognitive dissonance. Yeah. And then you could like slide up if you want, or you can get from there and then go down or whatever. But it just allows you to like move positions and kind of like play up while going the wrong way.
Okay, so does this just pop into your head one day? You're like cognitive dissonance thing.
Well, it's more like the concept, and then I give it a name, like a silly name, just so I remember what it is. But then I go through and I make these insane little maps, and I've been making stuff like this since high school, where like I figured out all these chord inversions, and the access I lacked to like an educator or someone to get lessons from actually provided me a lot of how I think and a lot of my voice on the instrument, because I had to find what these things were. So I knew that a seventh, like a major seventh chord existed. I knew what inversions were. So then I wrote out every version I could. And along the way, I find these kind of weirder shapes for it that I tend to like. Or, you know, if I read the book, I would have known, or if I had someone teaching me, I would have known that like suspended chords are less important typically, you know, in terms of how often they're used than like major chords. But I did the suspended second, major seventh versions of all these inversions and stuff too, and all my like these insane doodles. And then I proceeded to practice every day for 10 years and give myself terrible tendinitis. And in rereading the book, thinking about the podcast like a year ago, and Dan told me he read it, I was like, oh, I'll read it. I went back through and realized that the whole second half of the book is advice I didn't heed, because he really brutally injured himself and is just like cannot do the thing that he's dedicated his life to the right way anymore. And in that way, his like voice and creativity has had to move with it. But so yeah, definitely like in returning to it, I've appreciated that stuff, because I finally last year took the first break from the instrument I had, where I took 3 days off, and all of a sudden I didn't know tendinitis was an inflammation. I thought it just was a fact, you know, like you now have this, you are broken. But no, it's gotten so much better. I just give it time. Like 2 days ago, I had a show, and the day before I played a bunch, and I was nervous and I squeezed too tight, and my hand hurt. So I just haven't played for a couple days, and like, yeah, maybe I'll like butcher my cognitive dissonance scales in front of everyone, and they're all laughing at me at home. But like, it's fine. My hands don't hurt that bad. And if I play tomorrow, I'll probably be better for it.
It is, the book definitely, it's like, it's fairly neutral in its attitude. So it's not saying like, you have to be obsessive to create new things.
Yeah.
Nor is it saying like, because I was obsessive, it made my ability to create things harder. It's just like, it's just telling the story of like, when you read it as an adult, you do see, you're like, ooh, this, like, he's the inventor of these incredible tricks, and is such a like formative person in this like sport, or, you know, however you want to define skateboarding, this type of expression. But also he was like unwell in so many ways. Like he was obsessed to the detriment of his health in other areas, of his life in other areas. And reading the book, it's just kind of this interesting, I guess the relationship between the finding a healthy level of obsession where you can fully create and fully use your voice, but not hurt yourself in other areas. And talking about like the tendonitis issue, it's almost like it's learning to listen to your body instead of like telling your body do this constantly, like having moments where you're like, oh, my body is saying like not right now, like to be able to identify those moments where tomorrow you might be able to hit that dissonant, the cognitive dissonance scale. But today your wrist is saying I'm in pain, and you have to learn to say, oh, okay, so I guess wrist rests for today.
Yeah.
Wait, I have a question for you about this. So like I haven't read the book, and I was aware of the skateboarding scene and whatever, but was never really a part of it or whatever. And I think the most I know about Rodney Mullen is from the Tony Hawk documentary that he was a big part of because of how much he influenced Tony Hawk, obviously. But I mean, obviously, zooming out, this is about someone with such a singular focus that, like, obviously having such a singular focus results in that person getting very good at that thing and being revered for it. And Andy, I would say you match that in, you just smirked at me, but I think it's true.
I'm certainly obsessed about one. I'm myopic in my life, but I don't,
we don't need to do negative terms about it, but no, I just mean, so my question is like, you're talking about coming back to the book later and being like, oh, like I missed what he was saying, a big part of what he was saying. And I guess my main question is there any world where you can understand what he was saying before going through it? Like, is it even possible to read that and be like, oh, or does someone like Rodney Mullen and someone like you, maybe even, do you have to go over the edge to know where the edge is? Does that make sense?
That's a really good question. And I think for me, like losing my dad young, I've always looked for like my dad in a lot of ways was like my best friend. He was like really, it happens a lot when people pass, you highlight the best parts about them. But I feel very lucky that even though in those 10 years I had a really good dad, a lot of people, are not that lucky that they get like a good parent, even if it's for a short while. And in that absence, I think I've always looked for role models, and I've looked for kinship. Because I really, like, my experience with my dad was not after my dad passed, my mom really suffered. And I think she chose the position of like, of not a friend and parent, It was more like disciplinarian and parent. And so for me, I think there's a little bit of that like kinship and peer thing in a role model that I so connect with and so appreciate. And I think the book in a lot of ways was that for me, because I got to read about this like troubled kid with like, like a rough parent at home, who was so desperate to find a way out of it, and their way out of that social constraint in terms of success was also their way out of it in the moment. Their safe place, so to speak, was skateboarding. And for me, I realized that safe place, that safety net socially in the moment, the place where I could be, protected, was this private relationship I had with the guitar. And I hoped that I could also use that relationship to get me out of that place, literally, in time. And, when I was younger, I had aspirations to like go to school and like, go to school away or something, like a college. That didn't really pan out, but like it worked, And so that's a really good point, because at that time, all I wanted to see was, how do I get out of here and do this thing with this person who, when I see him talk, I feel like I understand him. And we probably think similarly. When I was a kid, I really wanted to be an engineer, a robotics engineer. And then like, I joke music ruined my life. But it's true. I like I've talked to you guys about this, but when I was younger, I would order like the Sweetwater catalogs, the paper catalogs. They were free. You can get them at home. And I would just like flip through them and, read something about a MN 3007 chip and be like, okay, well, what is that? And like, go learn about like a CE2 or something. Or, like germanium, like what is this? And then you can get into the forums and you read a lot of misinformation, and then you maybe get like a nugget of truth, and you walk away with more respect for like Analog Mike or someone. But
find someone doing a crazy Google search and you're like, I gotta say something.
Yeah, I gotta say something. I mean, honestly, it's so fun. It's still, that stuff is so stuck in my head. A couple weeks ago, I played a gig where I was like, it wasn't me doing my solo stuff. I was just playing guitar for someone. It was like a rock gig, and I like to do those a couple times a year to be like, can I still like play a power chord and strum in time? Yeah. And I fucking see Steely Dan's guitar tech from the rig rundown in 2011 or whenever that first rig rundown was. I was like, oh my God, is that fucking Night Bob? And I go up and like, hey, I'm so sorry. Are you Bob? He's like, yeah, how you doing? And I was like, it's really nice to meet you, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, man, there's still this like part in my brain that just has these, understandings and misunderstandings burned in. And they've opened up so many exciting paths for me. Even like my understanding of the guitar is really flawed, or the things I've found about the guitar were flawed understandings of things I read. Like I'd mentioned, my middle school librarian really kindly recognized my single interest and gifted me this like 101 books you should know about guitar that was in the library and had never been taken out before. And so cool. She was like, I went to take it out. She's like, yeah, you don't have to bring that back. It's fine. And I was like, okay, cool. And in it, there was some description of Frank Zappa's neck pickup and things describing his piezos that he had in some of his guitars. And I misunderstood that as a pickup in the neck of the guitar, not the neck position.
Wow. And
so that got me down this whole path of, oh, well, what if you did this and this and this? And that stuff culminates in like, I have my aluminum guitar here, but like, there's for the folks listening at home, my guitar has like, those two sounds are all over the record. There's piezos under the top of the guitar in these two hollow chambers. So I can like do a sound like that and loop it on the DL4 and have like an unpitched, like non-harmonic kind of wind breathing sound to be the bass of what I'm going to play over. And then I can play freely in, any chords or any arpeggios and ply stuff and not be dissonant. That all comes from just not understanding what the hell I was reading.
Yeah.
A long time ago.
Those early misunderstandings are, I guess I'm just pausing on how important those can be. I've been thinking a lot about Dweller recently and how like part of what makes Dweller so good is that I didn't understand what was happening. Like if I did understand, I wouldn't have the idea. But because I was just like, why are these two things so similar and yet create such different effects? What if wait, that sounds interesting.
Well,
and it's like now I get it. Like I understand the mechanisms so much more fully now. And if I tried to make a Dweller now, it would definitely, I just wouldn't, it's like, that idea wouldn't pop up as a surprise.
The thing that made Dweller, what was your lack of understanding in that realm, but now you no longer have that lack of understanding. So like the place where that's going to happen again is in a place where you currently lack understanding, which is like the frustrating part. I mean, it's not always.
For me, that's inspiring, to be honest.
Yeah, I was about to go back on what I just said. Like sometimes it's not always like that, but
that's what a lot of this. Like my composition notebook is just like this thing I don't understand, but I understand it enough to figure it out if I write about it for 10 pages. And then by the end of it, there's something I can read back and physically understand once I get my head around it. But this book, like seeing someone invent again and again and not force themselves to fit into the categories that already exist because they're in such a fresh medium, like skateboarding in the 60s is basically brand new. I think we really often forget that with the electric guitar. It's only like 51, you know, we're less than 100 years into this instrument. It took the violin like 400 years to settle into what we think of it as. That's why I'm always really excited about just trying something different and trying to find something different. And like, you know, like I was so lucky to try the Dweller prototype, and me and Dan like pretty quickly agreed, like it's not a thing that exists. And to try to sell it as such would undersell it, you know, because it is a phase repeater. And like, what the fuck is that? Well, what was a flanger?
Yeah.
It's just a word we all know.
That is, I guess for the listener that might not know, Andy Pitcher came up with the phrase phase repeater. We may have mentioned that on your first episode. I don't remember what all we talked about, but we were talking about how it feels like an effect that needs a different name because it feels like it's in a different genre. And then I remember you texting me like that this was like around one of the Brooklyn Stompbox exhibits. We were at
Kathy and Summer's house to date choir.
I remember Philippe from Caroline Guitar playing it and get the Jurassic Park quote of like, you know, scientists were so focused on whether they could that they didn't think to stop and ask whether they should. And then he laughed and he was like, no, but it sounds really cool. But then you texted me like a day after, you know, we all travel home, and then you're like, what about phase repeater? And then that became and then we made a BL phase repeater because we just decided to be really insistent that it's a full genre of pedal and not just like a reverb hack.
I can't wait for someone else to make one.
Yeah, one of these days.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a good spot to go back to the difference between like the physicality of skateboarding or even athletics in general versus music, because like even talking about Dweller, it's like, oh, you can do something crazy. Like, yeah, you did something crazy that hasn't been done before, but doing that in a physical athletic skateboarding world, like that's so dangerous. Like you're literally existing in a world where like no one knows what the safety protocols are. Like you could die, like, and like, I guess there's a tiny chance you could die making Dweller, but it's like so little compared. And so, and like, I don't know. It just goes back to that kind of choice you made, Andy. And I feel like even Tyler Blank Forms had a similar story where it was just like, I'm choosing the thing that I know I can do continually over and over. You know, guitar has its own, the tendonitis, you know, whatever, but it's like, it's not skateboarding. It's not football. It's not like the clock's not really ticking like that.
No.
And there's no, there's no danger around the boundaries. Like, you know, cross the boundaries, like phase repeater. Hell yeah. You know, nothing bad's going to happen when you make that, like, or to yourself.
Yeah, and like allowing yourself that freedom is so important, and that communication back with your body, and just making sure like, okay, we're good, we're safe. I don't have to be nervous. Like watching it really breaks my heart, and I understand, but it breaks my heart watching someone who doesn't play music get handed an instrument, and there's like a real fear, a deep fear that all of a sudden appears, and then, well, I don't know how to do this. I can't do this. You know, and you're like, dog, just like hit the strings.
Yeah.
Like your self-worth is not established by whether or not we think it's interesting when you hit the strings. Like just feel the body resonate against yours. It's so fun.
Do you think thing. The resistance to that is is due to the ubiquity of the instrument? Like everyone knows, like they see a guitar, they're like, oh, I know something about that. I know how it's supposed to go and I can't do that.
That's interesting. I don't know. That's a good question.
I think there's sometimes also a fear of like, am I going to break this thing? So it's not only like, am I going to sound bad, but it's just like, this is, you know, the entirety of this is not for me.
It's like a baby. Like, Dan, you're about to have a baby, and like, yeah, babies are like fragile or whatever. But then at the same, like, once you have to put like a tiny pair of pants on a little child who like can't do anything with their legs, and eventually you're just like shoving legs in there. It's like, it looks kind of crazy, but you're like, no, these things are pretty sturdy actually. Like you don't have to worry that much. Like, yeah, don't drop them on the head or whatever, but you can get their limbs going and it's fine. Like, I don't know what I'm saying about this, but
I got a good dent. I got a good dent on the back of my head. I'm still here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I got a cone head. So we're like cosmic balance.
Yeah. It's like our names are the same.
I got a bunch of knocks when I was like 2 or so. I always wanted to. I apparently would just like run with my head forward. Like I was trying to get there faster, so I would just start leaning. You know,
is that like a Naruto run? Is that what that is?
I don't know. Maybe
I don't know.
Did it steal that from me? Did the creators of Naruto?
Whoa! When did they saw you running and they were like, "Bing!"
Like this 2-year-old in Oklahoma is really onto something, but he does keep hurting himself doing it. Not actually onto something.
Well, Dan, you've never like broke a guitar just playing with it, right? So
it's like I know I haven't, and yet now I'm just like, have I
have I ever?
No, maybe a cover,
maybe a plastic cover for a
microphone,
a Tau.
Oh yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Huh?
Oh yeah, Dan broke one of Andy's guitars.
I did.
It was fine. If you watch the Explorations and the Coffee and Riffs that I got to do a couple years ago, there's a piece missing from the guitar between the 2 videos, and it's because I had broke it and really poorly super glued it back together so it looked okay. And then Dan did the exact same thing that I did, which was curiously explore on the thing, and then it broke again. So we just ripped it off the instrument for the video. But yeah, that's a fun Easter egg.
I had fully forgotten about that.
Sorry.
I appreciate that you leaned in to camera to indicate like I should be having a memory, because I was like, well, no, I've never broken. What? That's an odd question.
Don't be afraid.
Oh my god! I did. I'm so sorry.
Don't be afraid for your child. They're fine. They're fine.
I would like to amend my worst thing I've ever done answer.
Yes. Yeah, because it was funny.
That time when I tried to explore Andy's guitar.
It's so funny. I was mid sentence. I was like, oh, actually, and I was like, well. Yeah, there were a couple like bars on the guitar, and you could strum a pick against it, and it was a great sound because there's a microphone under it. I did it. I probably would have done it in the video had I not done it before then at home and realized that it wasn't, sound choice. But
yeah.
I have all the pieces. They're in a tiny little box. It's good.
I was just gonna say we're an hour and a half in. Do we want to pivot to like the album kind of stuff? There was the question about.
So Andrew, you have a new album out, and it's called Dot. Tell us about it. Dot is a really interesting name for something that I presume is a rock and roll album. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, there's a lot of widdly wahs
I see a guitar here. You're playing rock and roll.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an acoustic guitar. I'm playing some 10 great country ballads. What's that Ween record?
That's a funny band.
10.
I'm just gonna be in character the rest of the time.
It's like, man, Dan's really committing.
So.
But we have to answer the rib question too.
Yes, okay. We should start with the rib question. Let's dive in on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So like, what was Adam doing with Eve's rib? Like, what was the deal with that?
I don't know if that's real. You should listen to RXK Nephew. He has some thoughts on it. So there's, obviously I like fuck around with the, can I cuss on here? I fuck around with the guitar a lot. I'm sorry. I frick
this
around.
Is morning radio, Andrew.
I fudge around.
On AM radio.
Take the airwaves back. I love to experiment with the guitar, and like, I've talked, or maybe I haven't.
You love to have flawed understandings of the guitar, as you said earlier. I love
flawed understandings. What the hell are you talking about?
You said that.
I'm curious about the, like, truly experimenting. Like, I think that term gets misused a lot. Like, Pink Floyd are always like, oh, they're experimental. I'm like, they're not doing experiments. Like, an experiment is when you're trying something new, and then, like, once you kind of, like, land on it, give it a name, you know?
I don't think people generally like experiments.
That's true.
Do a lot of experimental music. Just the word, it doesn't inspire confidence. Like, it's like,
that's true.
Experimental music tells you this music is like,
it's like, if you don't like this, that's not my fault. Like,
I love to experiment, but then I just make sure I come home and like write about it and, call it something worth calling. But I've landed
conclusive music person.
Yeah, conclusive music. That's what I do. I've landed like my conclusive music. I've landed on electronic guitar, which was a term I was like, yeah, that feels right. I haven't seen that. And then I found this Adrian Blue video from the 80s where he says it. And I'm like, damn, Adrian, you're dead on, man. But it's like, you know, the electric guitar as an instrument is like, you cannot divorce the guitar from the amplifier. And to me, electronic guitar is like when the pedals have become so like what, you know, Andy Althink does even more so. It's like when it's like not divorceable from the instrument itself. The music is, the instrument is the pedal and the guitar, you know, be it the DL4 or 3 Dark Stars. Or I guess 4 looking at the board back there. Sorry, my apologies.
Right.
Sorry, 5 channels, potentially 5 channels of Dark Star if we're thinking stereo, Dark Star. Anyway, and yeah, so I that thought process for me doesn't end at just playing the instrument. It's also in capture, and I just haven't given myself the opportunity, or haven't been able to afford the opportunity to go into a studio before. So I had a lot of ideas I wanted to try. Probably the most noticeable one on the record is I recorded all of the acoustics with this 14 microphone matrix I set up around the room.
I've told people that 14 number because it sounds like when you're like, oh, he used like 112 mics. Like you just throw out a big number. Like you're like surely he didn't use 14, but I'm just saying 14 for hyperbole.
Yeah.
But I love that. No, it's actually 14.
It's actually 14. No, it really is. Well, and like I posted some photos since the record's out now. You can look on my Instagram. But there was like a stereo head, like a binaural head behind me to try to get like my sound of what I hear when I play guitar. And then there was a Electro Voice 635A, a little bit off the bout that I was processing. So there's stuff where I like put it through an attack decay or through Dweller. And then like there's a classical with Dweller on it on the second track removed. And then there was a wide set of Lomos, these like great vintage mics, and then like kind of a Steve Albini mic. Yeah, and then there was this kind of mid room, and then there's another stereo set further back. There was a Earthworks QC30, I think it's called. It's a field recording mic. There was one in the hallway and one kind of mid room, and that picks up just like me breathing, like every little detail. Too much string sound. Like that's what I like. And then there was stuff going off into amplifiers in the closet. I don't know if I've hit 14 yet. I don't think so. But I then took those sounds, and on a lot of the tracks, I'd play the exact same part on multiple instruments. And then instead of mixing, like, you know, the microphone sounds like it's right here. And here's 3 different guitars that sound really close. I put the room reverb that, you know, the Earthworks in the hallway was a classical, and the Lomos were the classical. But then the guitar behind you was a Nashville tuned guitar. But the guitar up close was like a steel string. And all of a sudden you have this conglomerate acoustic instrument where this room has almost this like affected thing to it, but it's acoustic music. Yeah. And so there's a lot of experiments like that, and some were more successful. Like if you hear an acoustic on the record, there's, I think, no moment where 2 instruments are using the same microphone. If you hear more than one acoustic. So like on the 6th tune with strings, if you listen for like the Nashville guitar versus the steel string versus the nylon, it's all different parts of this room. You hear it more in headphones. But one other thing that I was experimenting with was I taped a piezo disc to my rib, and I followed the rib to where the guitar leans against me when I sit with it in my lap. So if it's like, okay, it's to this rib, I taped it over here. And then I put it through a Mile End Effects RE150 like preamp and just cranked the gain. And so you could hear like my guts moving around. You can hear me breathing a little bit. You could hear the guitar kind of through my body. And that is most noticeable at the end of the last tune on the record. Why did you choose
that spot though? Like why?
Why the rib?
Yeah.
Because I was thinking about the way the guitar vibrates against me. And it's like, and I wanted to capture in moments the experience of playing the guitar. I am kind of often nervous and uncomfortable about like presenting guitar playing. I more just want to be able to play the guitar, and I'm happy that people can listen or like maybe invite people in, but it's private. It's for me. You know, I've never really broken out of that thing of it being like, you know, kind of a personal opportunity. whenever I play music with a band on stage, I'm always looking at the other people because I just want it to I just want to be in this our moment that we're making, and I can't interface with an audience and be like, you like this? What do you think about this? You know,
you don't put your foot up on the monitor while you're ripping the solo, dude.
No, only in my new metal cover band that we do for Halloween, you know, and New Kids on the Block and you, but it's different. And so for me, I wanted to capture my experience with the instrument, and that just felt like a way to do it. The sound moving through my body is part of it. And so I tried that, and it wasn't, that was an experiment, and it's maybe not something I'd do again, but it was really fun. There's other stuff like that I want to try. But the last tune on the record, End Alone, which was kind of I wanted to capture the experience of playing the guitar up front, and then almost we discussed this, a spirit in the room listening. And I'm not someone who's religious, but these ideas are interesting to me. And it's kind of, it's the record's about loss. It's about, kind of losing my parents and growing up with a lot of excitement and kind of what the world turned out to be. And that last tune is very much, kind of like a dirge in that way, but it's kind of melancholy, it's optimistic sounding. And so it starts kind of as the listener, and then as you listen, it kind of moves about the room. And so there's moments where I hit chords really hard so that you hear the mics only in the back. And you hear, kind of the walls of this room slowly as it goes. And at the very end of that track, there's this big low sound that comes up, and that's the rib mic. It ends kind of just like the rib mic exclusive.
Nice.
So you can listen to that and hear that sound.
That's the sort of idea that I feel like you would have conceptually before, I would believe you if you said, oh, that was planned to be the last sound on the album before I even recorded a thing.
Yeah. It was basically, the whole thing was mapped out, and there were moments where I want to listen to options. That's kind of the way that improvisatory nature of my work found itself was in mixing. But in recording, it's we're just going to get everything, and then I'm going to work later to take it all away.
Yeah, I think last time we got a little bit more into all the prep work you did for the album, because I was remember being impressed with how much work you did going into it, especially for a first album, because there are so many things you can do wrong recording your first album. There's so many things you can spin out on or spend too much time on or money. But it seems like because you have a pretty good hold on yourself and what you wanted, that you didn't really. I'm sure there was some of that, but that's not the main thing that happened, which is what happens with a lot of people's first albums. Is the only thing I got out of this is lessons for the next time.
I was honestly really afraid of that, and I was lucky to see that from other people. I did wait a long time to make my first record. I've been trying to make an album. The first tune on the record, All's Life, I wrote when I was 15, 16, something like that.
Yeah, you sent us that picture where you're
baby. Yeah, I both look older and younger. I was haggard beard and shit. But anyway, yeah, you're 15. You're I can grow facial hair. Why not? And then you're oh, that's why not. But yeah, it's just it's been with me a long time, and I've learned a lot about myself as a collaborator over the years. And I find it very easy to make music in an improvising way, and it allows me to just kind of always be exploring. And in doing so, it makes it hard for me to think that one thing is worth more than the next. So it took a long time for me to give a particular melody value enough to write it down, because I'm well, I could just improvise something different. Why is that any better than this? But slowly I learned to think of those things, and I found that every time I was in the studio working with a band, with the Armed, for the solo on Fifth Medication or with Motika, present me a prompt and it comes to me instantly, and I can fill in
AI.
Yeah, I'm Andy.
You're real artificial intelligence.
Yeah. And
stupid.
And that movie. And there's this moment there that I feel really connected and really excited and really inspired. And I could never, like, getting to write in someone else's voice just made sense. And so I realized after years of like genuinely, probably since I was like 23, I was like, this is the year I do the record. Then I turned 24. Okay, well, this is the year I do the record. And I hit 28 and was like, I have to do this before I'm 30. I always had this weird thing in my head. And now as a 30-year-old, I'm like, oh yeah, I understand why. I just thought I wouldn't make it. Like, even as like somebody who's like as restrictive with my lifestyle as I am, like, I just thought a bus was going to fucking take me out or something. But it's just that 30 means nothing. It is funny. There's no big moment. Like, I just turned 30 and it doesn't mean anything. I'm like, oh, that's why it was so weird and scary and unimaginable, because there's nothing to imagine. It's just, you're just out. I'm just out now, But yeah, so I realized that what I had to do was basically like hire myself in that way, where I outlined what I wanted the record to be. I had to make it concept first. And so I made the idea of, okay, if I only ever get to make one record because the bus comes for me, or I run out of money, or, whatever, like, how do I represent myself well? And all the different parts of myself as an acoustic guitarist, or as the way I'm an electric guitarist.
Or a famous pitcher from the 1800s.
Yeah, the way I'm a pitcher from the 1800s, where the trolley was coming for me.
The trolley problem.
The trolley problem, yeah. I was both pulling the lever and on the track. And
on the track.
And, myself as an electronic guitarist or as an improviser. And I was like, fuck it, I'll just make something where I could do all of it. And then I was like, okay, how does that not sound manic? Or like I didn't know what I was trying to do. And so I kind of drew up this idea of like a symmetrical thing. So the record's kind of a palindrome where the first and last tracks are acoustic, one take, no overdubs. The next in are layered guitar of acoustic and electric, but there's nothing that's like electronic really per se. Plenty of effects, like I said, Removed has a ton of dweller on it and stuff. But then the next in are truly like, it's electronic music. It's programmed drums, it's bass synthesis, and everything else is guitar with enough effects that it doesn't, or it may not sound like guitar. Cloud Clutter, the third track, is all Sunlight, like it's Sunlight with the blend, with the mix all the way up, just forming these like slow attack chords that make the basis for the whole thing. And then I sat on that for like a year, and I went through all of my backlog of recordings and Instagram videos and demos, like the Sunlight demo from the Machine Music, and scraps of paper. I mean, I have like, like the back of a cereal box that I ripped out because I felt bad about like waste, and I just have like sheet music scrawled on it. And I took these ideas, I called them all seeds, and I made a big pile, and I slowly filled in. I knew All's Life was going to be there, but the first tune that I wrote when I was young, but I was like, how is this constructed? And I slowly kind of auditioned thoughts, and then when I found those seeds, I then went, about a year later and wrote the record based off this prompt that I had left for myself, but left myself enough time to not be judgmental of it. And then, I kind of grew this thing out of it. And I made a demo of the whole record at home. And then for the electronic stuff, I just got to reuse that and just record a new guitar. For the single shot acoustic stuff, I just practiced enough to kind of be ready for it. And even then the studio nerves got to me a bit. And then I sought out what sounds would make me proud of this thing in 20 years. And so I was very lucky to borrow a bunch of instruments. The first track is like a 1945 single 018 Martin that was loaned to me by the Blue Guitar Foundation. And the last track, my friend Steven lent me this really beautiful pre-war guitar company, 00018. Brazilian, that I tuned down to match where that body kind of like best reverberated, so that the low string, I think it landed around C sharp, the low string just has this big boom sound to it, because that's where the guitar kind of sounded best. It had this like resonant frequency thing. And slowly built it up from there and kind of knocked it out from there. It just was, very I just had to build a team that was trusting of me and capable of me saying something insane and being respectful enough.
How many mics? What?
Yeah. And like, yeah, I got lucky to find the people I did. Zach Goldstein at Quarry Sound in Philadelphia, or outside Philadelphia, was the tracking engineer, recording engineer on everything. And he helped set up these like impossible mic situations in a space that was quiet enough to get all these details.
Yeah.
There were, we learned together, like there were takes where his wheels on the chair. So the way that studio set up is the first floor is the studio and the second floor is the control room. So there's no visual. I got to just be in headphones. And like, if I'm making a weird face while I'm playing, I'm not self-conscious, which often happens. And so we basically turned that whole room into a microphone. And if he creaked in the chair, we could hear it. We'd listen back. So like we'd have to redo takes, and slowly we learned how to record together in this way, because the room was so hot. Or like the microphones were so sensitive to every movement. But we ended up with this thing where there's this kind of like ASMR level of detail on everything, be it artifice or genuinely there. That I just, kind of brings all sounds to equal in that kind of like cage way that really connects with me.
It is really, I'll also say for the listener that hasn't checked out the album yet, please do. But when talking about these recording techniques, I think you naturally envision something a little bit more chaotic than what you actually created, because I think the way that it coheres is really impressive, where I don't have a sense of like, there's guitars everywhere, man. It's like you still feel like it's one guitar, but it is like it has all those little expressions, but they're all structured so perfectly around presenting the compositional aspects and the melodic and harmonic parts that, it's not, it sounds conclusive, I guess, rather than experimental. It's like even though there was an experiment to making it through the mixing process and through the curation there, the songs do shine in a way where I get parts of it stuck in my head. That I think if I heard about this approach to recording and composition, I'd be like, oh well, this must be a really interesting album to listen to, but it's not going to be catchy. You might make assumptions like that, but it's like, it is catchy, and it is. I have like every time I listen to it, like a different piece will end up stuck in my head, and I think that's almost part of what's so impressive about it, is like you ultimately have created something that is accessible kind of to any level. You don't have to be. It doesn't require active listening to enjoy it, but active listening then reveals all these additional layers that you have put so much time into.
Thank you. Yeah, I was really like, in a lot of ways, it was like my debut as a music, or like as a composer, because I've never really done that out loud. Like I've always kind of shot myself as an improviser. And I didn't play these tunes live for years and cull them. I really wanted to like be obsessive and design something from the top down that if it isn't interesting musically, maybe it's interesting by sound. And if it's not interesting sound, maybe it's, maybe like the music or, but just let it be me. And, hopefully I get to collaborate more in the future and use this as almost like, hey, here's what I offer. And here's the experiments I did. Yeah. It's kind of, in that way. And, I really appreciate that. Yeah. Cause it's that is something I was nervous about, is like the re-listen value. And if people are able to make it a part of their lives and really decode it, I left a lot in there, hopefully, for people to find. Not just guitar, like there's conditional behavior on all of the drums. So there's like three, like I really like Timbaland, honestly. And all the stuff he does with Missy, like he has multiple drum machines on everything, and they add up to this great sound that you don't notice that it's multiple things at once. So I had up to 5 drum kits on some tunes that had behavior where there was only 20%. There's a main kit, and then there's 20% chance that the drum kit on the left, which is different than the drum kit on the right, would trigger. And if it any one of those instruments in that kit, the snare, the kick, blah, blah, triggers, it will pick from one of 20 sounds. And it's sound design I've done myself, where I source these sounds through synthesis, so, generative synthesis, and I pull these sounds that I liked. And so there's one that might be center, and like, I edit stuff so that like when a polyrhythm is occurring, I don't want it to miss a drum beat, because I'm trying to make it feel real. So then I tell it, don't fuck around right here, for this bar or something. But yeah, I mean, I manually dragged shakers off time throughout the whole, like Cloud Color, like the whole tune. And then there's one shaker in one ear, one in the other, and they kind of sound like different takes. But it's electronic. I just wanted to, like, in the way that I'm trying to pull my guitar to this uncanny valley, I wanted to pull the percussion to this uncanny valley. And so every time I hit play, it's different.
Yeah, I was going to ask, that'll be different every time you go back to the beginning of the file. Like,
yeah,
whatever's there when you hit bounce is what we're actually going to hear. But like,
yeah,
it's still random. Are you using Ableton for that?
Yeah, it's all Ableton. Yeah.
Yeah, because I know some of not the most recent update, but the update before that was a big, like, they added probability to so many things.
Yeah, I actually I got a new computer to finish the record, because I started writing it on my old Lenovo PC. It wasn't a ThinkPad, it was a Legion, and it just like could not keep up with some of the stuff I was trying. There's like some of the tunes on this record have over 200 tracks. It doesn't sound like it, but it's all that detail. It's the eyebrows, like you don't notice someone's eyebrows when you talk to them, but if they weren't there, you would notice. It's like that kind of thing. I really love that term in music. But all of a sudden you get like these creaks of the guitar against my pants, or the sound of the, my hand on the strings and that kind of stuff. And sometimes it's not really there, and I've synthesized it and I've added, like that kind of thing, to pull into this uncanny valley, kind of thing.
Man, I love that stuff where you're like, you're diving into the weirdness of it, so that like everything sounds intentional, like to an extent, like you can almost do anything like it.
Yeah.
You had certain things you were trying to accomplish, but I feel like at a point it's like, because of where you've positioned yourself creatively, it's like anything can go here. And like lately I find myself thinking about songwriting and getting kind of overwhelmed with the like kind of the arbitrary decisions you make when you're writing a song. Like even what you're saying about the randomness, like what we hear on the album is just because that's the take you decided to hit bounce. Like if you'd have done it a minute later, it would have sounded different. Like
yeah. And if
I really like that stuff.
It to me, it's connected to like, I had dreams of like going to jazz school when I was a kid, and I couldn't do it, but like all that stuff is still, all that improvisation lust is still in my head. Like it's just how I think, and to like, I tried to play some of this material for the first time over the weekend, and some of it worked, and some of it I was like, no, I missed the percussion, and so I'm gonna have to like figure out how to play with Ableton Live, because I still want it to be improvisatory, and I'm gonna have to figure out like how to trigger drum parts so that I'm not playing along to the track as much as I'm telling it, okay, I'm ready to go to the B part, because maybe live I want to extend it a section and like experiment more. I
know how to do that. So
well, let's chat. Let's talk.
Let's talk.
But yeah, it just feels really good. And I mean, honestly, I struggled like with credits even on the record, because the people I chose to work with me were people I really trusted and needed their input and their expertise on how to do this stuff. And I couldn't have done it without like the team I had assembled. But also I was so hands-on in everything that I'm like, like I was so Zach Weeks and James Palco, two really wonderful musicians, mixed it. And I was like, hey, how do you want me to break up like who mixed what? And they're like, well, it should be all three of us on everything. I'm like, well, I didn't mix it. They're like, well, yes, you did. You were,
yeah.
I'm like, so what I ended up with is I put myself as director of engineering. And then I have a recording engineer, Zach Goldstein, my mixing engineers, Zach Weeks and James Palco, mastering engineer was Zach Weeks as well. And then, the album cover was a drawing I did. I drew the font and all this stuff. And then, Micah J. Matthewson from Nashville, who used to be my roommate, has this amazing band called Soot. It's a big sticker on the side of my deal for if you ever see it. He's a wonderful photographer. He's currently at Carter. He does a lot of their videography and photography stuff. Carter Vintage Guitar. If you like are lusting over a telly, he probably took the photo. He took all the photography for me, and he translated my chicken scratch font ideas into like actual text. And he's the photography engineer. That's what we landed on.
Nice.
Yeah, I mean, he just all these. I couldn't have done it without them. I'm so grateful. But it was like, hey, can you not give me too much input? Like, just so I can really get this thing out of my head and feel like this is a solo record in totality, because I don't have the skills to do all the things I need to do to truly make this by myself. And it's, so I feel very grateful for their patience and trust, and patience again.
Let me say something, and you see if it rings true or not, because it feels like the
Snakes
experience you had in this. Well, yeah. But going back to the Rodney Mullen.
Oh,
thing,
sorry.
No, I'm being serious, dude. For 1 second.
Sorry.
No, you talking about how you didn't pick up on the latter half of the book, maybe, or like the other lesson. Like it feels like you kind of did, though, in the way you went about this process. Like, I feel like Rodney Mullen, if he'd have listened to this last 2 hours, would be like, oh no, it sounds like you've got it under control, kind of. Like, this is not the process of someone who is going to kill themselves, for lack of a better way to say that, from the title of the book. Because you've mentioned that in this conversation, and I that's real, and I'm with you on a lot of it. But I also hear someone who is, if maybe never out of that world, but you're clearly pointed and headed away. At
least
from what I can tell,
for one big gesture, at least, it's like, let me at least make one thing. But I hope to do more. I have thoughts. I have some soft plans for more stuff and more experiments, and hopefully more collaboration with people. Like I love to play on folks records, and be it stuff we write together or just stuff that I add a layer to. It's a great, it makes the time spent worthwhile.
And it is kind of beautiful to think like this. So, you're thinking of like All's life being written when you're like 15 or 16. You have the composition notebook that over, the course of so many years forms so many different ideas. You have so many different seeds, that you're gathering together to compose this thing. And you're seeing it as like this culmination of like sort of your guitar career so far.
Yeah.
But the so far is kind of the beautiful part of it, is it's like this, you have now released this, and now it gets to mark the beginning of something instead of the end of something. Like it gets to be both things.
I mean,
I think you've had this expression of voice, and there's no pressure to do a follow-up solo album, but it is just like, it feels like it could be the first of something as much as it is the culmination of something.
That's dot for me. It's that's how you end a sentence with a period, or I think it maybe like Kerouac or someone has that, like the dot is the first thing on the page, like as soon as your ink meets paper, there's a dot. And so that's kind of what I wanted it to be for me. Like, could be the start, it could be the end. It doesn't really matter. Maybe it's just one thought, and I never make a record like that again.
You're just putting a flag down.
Yeah. I was very lucky to interview Pat Metheny, who's obviously has been like a hero of mine for most of my guitar playing life. I was so lucky. We joked about this, but like last time, the town I grew up in, there must have been some weird like jazz fusion guy who died, because all of a sudden all these records turned up at the thrift store I used to go to. And for $0.25, I got the Pat Metheny First Circle, and I got like Jeff Beck Blow by Blow, and I got some Odd Vishnu stuff, and it just like cracked my head open. And I had a record player, and I was too dumb to torrent, so I just listened to vinyl all the time. And I would like get it onto the computer and have it on my my MP3 player. And I just learned so much from these things, and so really amazingly, I got to interview Pat for my job, and I kind of asked him about his body of work because he has so many. I think he had just put out his 50th or 70th album or something, and he has some real fucking deep stuff that doesn't get appreciated. Like he has a record called Zero Tolerance for Silence, and it's straight up a noise album. It's straight up like Pat doing like Derek Bailey noise guitar, but distorted. It sounds like Keiji Haino if he was Pat Metheny. It's unbelievable. Dang. And, so I was kind of asking him, like, how do you see that stuff? And he gave me this amazing answer that came at the right time because I was forming this record. And he had said that to him, his first album, Bright Size Life, was like the foyer, like the foundation of a house. When you go into this mansion he's been building over his life, you hear about those people who like spent their whole life spending their fortune. They're the heiress to something, and they just built this mansion with stairways that go nowhere and fake doors and that kind of stuff. For him, Bright Size Life was that. He said everything he was ever going to say on that record. And then he explored it, and then he explored it this way, and then he built this whole wing of the house that's dilapidated now and fell apart and didn't actually lead anywhere, but now he's doing this. And it really was what I needed to hear at that time. And just because it was like the format of this interview at the time was like, we were just having a conversation and there's a camera there, it made it feel very like much more personal advice than it really was, just because that's how we had to pretend to be for the conversation. I don't know him. I can't say he's like a friend of mine. I spent this hour with him once. But it was in a way such a gift, because if I'm lucky now that I'm on the other side of 30 and I at least know that I made it, there was, I'll be honest, when we recorded the last one, there was some small idea of like, maybe I don't make it to 30. And this was like all I get to say about the record.
The bus comes on the last day of 29.
Yeah. I was walking home. My birthday's the 6th. I was walking home from work on the 5th, like really checking my corners. But yeah, I'm here. But yeah, so I hope to build more, and I hope to like maybe do a record just of electronic guitar music. I have ideas for that, and really explore that sound deeper and find more emotions in that than just kind of like melancholy. I want to make a collaborative invitation, kind of a record of a collection where I take the rest of the seeds that I've been collecting that feel like they don't go somewhere, and put them all together, and just put out like 100-track micro album that you can listen on shuffle, and it'll be like pleasant sounds, or you can sample it, or you could learn it, or, whatever you want, stitch a couple together. I hope to have more of this work one day, but I don't know how soon, and I think I won't make another dot. I don't want to make another dot. I don't think I should make another dot. I think that's not the thing to say again.
Yeah.
And don't do that.
Yeah. The feelings I was processing
you wouldn't
on
have
it,
fun
like,
doing that.
I wouldn't, yeah. But I do think that there will be some what's the callback? What word did you use? Not experiments.
Oh, conclusions.
There will definitely be some conclusionary techniques. Like I think I would do the microphone thing again.
Conclusionary techniques.
Yeah, but yeah, I don't know.
Try the other rib next time. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll probably do both. I think that's the thing I've learned with like piezos is always more. Once you have like with this guitar, like once there's a matrix of them, you get this much better sound than just one fighting for its life.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. More piezos. Advice from Andrew Pitcher based on his new album, Dot.
Andrew the Pitcher.
And I do think that we should, just for time, we should probably wrap it up.
Yeah, it happened again.
I know. We have talked for over 2 hours and could go for
everyone.
Another.
Oh, should I start recording?
Many hours. Yes. Did I kind of feel like you made that joke last time?
I don't even want to think about it if I didn't, because it feels so bad.
And it's recorded. And I think it's fair to say that was a very inspired conversation. I feel like we were more nervous this time. We're like, did we say this? And I'm like, wait, no one heard that.
Yeah. And you know, both of these were excellent and didn't feel like the same conversation. We definitely we went over some of the same info, but certainly not in the same way.
That's a compliment to you too, because it doesn't feel like it's just a conversation, and the conversation today and the conversation tomorrow and the next day we could do this 5 times. It would be different each time. So
yeah, well, we're basically doing that improv thing you're talking about. Like, I prepared a little bit technically, but in terms of the conversation, I ain't preparing at all. That's how I like it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let's do that. Let's do that old plugs theme.
Yeah. Here we go.
Let's do the plugs. The plugs. I love the plugs. Give me the links. 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 Give me the links.
Hit me with those links, fam.
It's like when a show has a really dramatic moment and then the theme just hits, you know, it's like, yeah, this like fascinating, like insightful 2-hour conversation. And then just like, give me the links, give me the links.
Yeah.
Andy, what are your links? Where should people go listen to your stuff?
Well, andypitcher.bandcamp.com.
Yep.
Is where I have music for listening and purchase. It's also on streaming everywhere. If you want to own it and can't afford it, you can write me an email at andy@andypitcher.com or DM me on Instagram, andy.pitcher. I have so many free download codes. I want people to have it more than I want people to pay for it. There's a lot of better ways to make money, so just fucking tell me you want it. If you like it, I'm like trying to get some nice words on there on some reviews, so feel free to do that. It makes it easier for me to send it to people to review.
Yeah.
But yeah, basically at andy.pitcher, just about everywhere. And then I have a website, andypitcher.com. It exists. There's a nice, if you want to see all the work I've done, there's a tab for audio, and that has all my studio work. My discography's on there. That's fun to click through. Spent a lot of time on that. So you can tell me how bad I did. Thanks to Google Sites.
No.
And then, be nice to me, whatever. And then
tell him how bad he is.
If you want to collaborate, hit me up. I love to work with folks, and, you know, send me your finished record that you're like, there's something missing, and I'll add like a strange sound to it, and you'll be like, well,
there's
wasn't
an
that
Andy-sized hole in my song?
Yeah.
I mean.
And yeah, rock and roll. The last one,
yeah, rock and roll.
last one was we recorded on Trans-Day Visibility, and we had a nice little shout out, but we lost that because the audio got eviscerated.
Shoot. We're bad allies. God,
but again,
shout out,
happy belated Trans-Day Visibility.
Yeah, happy belated. Yeah. Keep on rocking in free world.
Keep on rocking in free world.
Yeah.
My only plug, as always, is twitch.tv/power economy. If you want Fortnite and more guitar guys, I have to be really careful because like Twitch's rules are so much more stringent than like compared to stuff you can upload on YouTube. So there's a lot of guys. I'll just say it like this: there's a guy that I follow who wears really short shorts and likes to sit cross-legged a lot. I'll just say that. And I pulled up a video on stream and I went, if I had decent followers on that platform, I would have gotten shut down. I didn't know it was going to be like that, but you know, that happens sometimes. If you're into that, come check out twitch.tv/power economy. So stupid.
I do want to plug. You reminded me of I'm a bit repeater, but the last episode didn't come out. I do want to plug that I'm wearing overalls.
Oh yeah.
On stream.
Yes.
Because it visually indicates that I am wearing pants. I think quite often there are accusations of folks not wearing pants when they're seated on here. I just want to be clear. I am panted.
I just realized that for me and Dan though, there's still a question.
It does create a different implication.
And for all the episodes, that idea. And I'm so sorry to do that too, but I had to get out ahead of it.
For the conspiracy-minded folks, might even wonder if, well, maybe there does exist top-only overalls that Andy's wearing. What if he's lying?
I did make them. As you can see, there's no logo. So clearly no brand made these.
Listen,
and it wasn't
exist and scissors exist, so
it was an X-Acto.
Painless overalls.
I was
over sums. Office. Did we say that last time?
Over sums. That's what it was. Over sums. Yeah.
Over most.
Yeah.
And finally, we got to plug Old Blood.
Go
buy Old Blood pedals. Go whatever, you know.
So if you want, someone DM'd me this week and said top 3 Old Blood pedals, and I was like, why? They're like, just curious. I was like, I don't know. Well,
why?
I could say the ones I use the most on the record are Dweller and Sunlight, having like being the backbone of stuff. And then Alpha Haunt didn't make it onto there, but I think there's some Float I love. Me and Andy are the. Do you want to wait?
Which me on there?
Do you want to do it?
Oh yeah, wait. I gotta look. Hold on.
How am I doing?
My head's so much bigger than yours. I gotta. Wait, are they facing? Yeah, they face each other.
Dan, how are we doing?
This is so good. This is good content.
This is great. This is great content here. For the listener, Andy and Andy are
in a staring contest,
pointing their faces at each other as if they are the Float guitar pedal,
bit of a
dual moving filter,
gag.
available now at oldbloodnoise.com for all of your moving dual filter needs.
And I know we all have many of those.
Well, this was a moving conversation with my friends.
Wow, I don't know how to take that. With my friends.
Colleagues? No, friends.
With my acquaintances.
I was trying to see if there's a way to put filter in like you know, a relationship status, but it didn't work.
Yeah.
You're my friend.
Yeah, there's probably something there.
Yeah. I'll say with my full chest, you two are my friends.
Oh!
You two are my friends.
And have been for a long time.
And you two are my friends.
With 3 friends. And thank you, friend, for joining us for the 3rd time. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for being with us again. I appreciate you. I think in both of these conversations you have shared a lot of yourself, and I appreciate the amount of yourself that you share with us and with the world, both through conversations like this and through Dot, which is a very sort of, quippy interviewer way of being like, I want to thank you for all you share, both in this conversation and through your art, but like quite genuinely, I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dan and Andy.
Guys, we gotta get out of here.
Yeah,
we gotta.
I'm gonna hit the button that does the thing at the end. You ready?
It's bedtime.
The eject button.
Yeah, I'm hitting it right now.
Today it's 5 p.m. I have to eat.
Oh my! Hit record.
You gotta eat something. Yeah, I'm gonna start recording, and now.
Object Worship is a production of Old Blood Noise Endeavors. All opinions expressed by the hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the company. They might, but they don't necessarily. It's edited and mixed by Andy Othling. It's hosted by myself, Dan Piahachek, and Andy Othling. And to get in touch, you can join us in the Old Blood Discord and send a message to our various online entities. There's links in the thing. Follow it.